Welcome back to another episode of the What We're Watching podcast. I'm Megan.
And I'm Jeni, and today we're talking about Raise Your Voice.
I had never seen this movie, and I can't believe I had never seen this. Not only that, but I don't think I knew it existed until we became friends, which feels impossible because of the amount of people that I know that are in the movie, and I feel like everyone else knows about it, but somehow this just like skipped me.
The silly grin that is on my face right now. I have just been dying for you to see this movie, and I cannot wait to hear what you have to say. I'm a little bit scared that things are cringy without the nostalgic glasses on. So I'm curious to hear the good and the bad, but I hope you liked it.
I did like it, and I don't think it was that cringy, actually.
Oh my gosh.
There was maybe one or two parts where I was like, ugh. Actually, there's only one that I can think of that just like made me want to die.
I know which part you're talking about.
When she's doing her scales in the class.
That is the most iconic scene of the movie.
It made me want to die. But otherwise, I thought it was incredible.
Oh my gosh, yay.
I love Hilary Duff. She can do no wrong.
And she was such the it girl at that time. Like, even now watching it, I was like, man, she's so cool.
She is so cool. And I love this bleached hair era of hers. And I remember this hair. So I don't know how I completely missed this movie.
This was right after a Cinderella story, I think. So same vibe kind of with her hair. It's kind of like choppy and super blonde. Yeah. This movie was one of my favorite movies. I don't even remember how I heard about it. I feel like it was just on TV sometimes, and I would watch it whenever it was on TV. As a kid, I thought this was the deepest movie ever.
I can see that. I can totally see that.
I just remember it was so emotional to me and so good. And it was actually like very adult. It had a lot of adult themes.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of surprised that it resonated with me as a kid.
The vibe of it reminds me of the last song.
I was thinking that. Yes, absolutely.
There's just this like underlying storyline of tragedy, which just makes it very heavy for like a teen movie, you know, more than normal.
Yeah. Also with that movie, it's like music and she's kind of grungy a little bit, even though she's Hilary Duff and she's like innocent and sweet.
True.
But there's some connections there for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Also, isn't Kat Dennings in both movies? No. Just
I don't
kidding.
think she's in the last song.
No, it's that other girl who looks like Kat Dennings to me. Never mind.
But yeah, this whole movie, I just kept going, oh my gosh, that's Kat Denning. Oh my gosh, that's Jeremy Ritter. Oh my gosh, that's so-and-so or so-and-so. It's crazy.
Yeah, and I don't think I remembered the full plot of this movie, but as I was watching it, I remembered every scene with my whole heart. I remembered everything. And that was fun.
That is fun.
You just like remember, oh my gosh, this movie did mean a lot to me as a kid.
That's the best type of rewatch where you can't, when you think of the movie in your head, you can't remember everything that happens, but then when you're watching it, it's coming back to you. That's fun.
It's kind of rare to have one of those because it's like we were talking about John Tucker last week and I was like, yeah, I think I had seen it before, but I didn't remember the plot at all.
Mm-hmm.
And this was just the opposite. It's like I didn't remember the plot until I started watching it.
Mm-hmm. So the logline for this movie is, Terry Fletcher is a small-town girl with the voice of a big-time singer. When personal tragedy interrupts her steady life, Terry defies her father's wishes and secretly heads off to spend a summer at a Los Angeles Performing Arts Academy.
I forgot to mention that this is a highly requested movie as well. So I think you guys feel the same way about this movie.
I think so too. I think everybody loves it as much as you do.
Yeah. Well, I'm so glad that now you are in the club. Did you feel watching it like you were transported back to that time where you could like now, do you think this movie might be nostalgic to you?
Probably. Because the vibe is so early 2000s. This came out in 2004, so it's like almost the same exact year that I feel like every movie that we talk about came out. And like the haircuts were so early 2000s and the fashion and the music and all of it. So yeah, it was great.
Oh my gosh, yay.
Just a quick reminder, if you guys have been enjoying the podcast, to leave us a 5-star rating and a review wherever you listen.
It really helps the podcast out a lot. Thank you.
So this movie is directed by Sean McNamara, and I hadn't heard of him before, but he's a director and a producer. And he also produced Soul Surfer, The Cutting Edge Going for Gold, which we have been recommended after our Ice Princess episode, Phil of the Future,
okay,
and other things. And kind of in the similar vein, he directed some episodes of Even Stevens. He also directed the Sweet Life movie, Alien Stole My Body, The King's Daughter, Kickin' It, and a bunch of kind of one-off episodes of Disney shows, including Jonas, Shake It Up, and Jessie.
Oh my gosh.
So very in the Disney Channel sphere. So it kind of makes sense that he was the one sort of captaining this Hilary Duff movie.
Yeah, although this one to me is like a mix of a Disney Channel movie and like something bigger. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's, to me, again, it gave The Last Song. That was a Nicholas Sparks book. I want to say that was technically done by Disney, not Disney Channel, but you know, like the thing that comes on before the movie starts. I feel like that was Disney.
I think you're right.
I don't think this one was, but it gave the same vibes as that. Like it did give studio movie, not Disney Channel original movie, and yet it had Hilary Duff.
Yeah.
Similar to like She's the Man. Like it was kind of in that tier.
I agree.
You know, step above, not even above, but you know what I'm saying. Like it wasn't a Disney Channel original movie, but it also wasn't like 13 going on 30 adult drama movie, you know? Like it was for the teens.
Mm-hmm. It reminded me of What a Girl Wants a lot.
Yes, for multiple reasons.
Yes, which we will get into.
It was written by Mitch Rotter and Sam Schreiber, and I was looking at the other things that they've done, and this is actually Sam's only writing credit on IMDb.
Whoa.
Mm-hmm. He has one other credit where he worked in continuity on a script for something else, and that's it. So I kind of wonder, like, did he maybe write this script, submit it to something?
Sell it,
right. And this was just sort of a one-off thing for him. I don't know.
Interesting. That's kind of my dream, though.
I know, exactly. I was like, it can be done. Look at Sam. He wrote the script. It got made. He wasn't famous before. He didn't become famous after.
Yeah.
And then Mitch has produced some smaller projects, and he also has worked in the music department for a few movies, including Elf.
Oh, cool.
So I guess it makes sense they had somebody musical that was writing this too.
I think they needed that.
And this I thought was interesting. This movie had a bunch of last-minute cast changes, similar almost to like Freaky Friday. We talked about that in the Freaky Friday episode. But Evan Rachel Wood, who is from 13 and Westworld, you guys I'm sure know her, and Jonathan Jackson, who's from Nashville and Tuck Everlasting, were originally supposed to play Terry and Jay, the main two leads. But then they both dropped out at the last minute due to production changes. And so did Annie Potts, who was going to play Terry's mom, and the director, James Heyman. And when all of this happened, they also changed the story's location from New York City to LA.
Okay. We have to back up, but first, I do think New York City makes more sense than LA.
Agreed.
Maybe. Production changes.
This feels like Hollywood movie speak code for something that I don't know what it means.
Okay, question. Do we think Evan Rachel Wood, Jonathan Jackson, and Annie Potts are religious? I ask that because...
What makes you ask that? I don't
Sorry.
know.
I know that sounds random. The movie was originally pitched as a Christian music project.
Ooh.
And that changed a lot, but I noticed in this movie, rewatching it, I was like, wow, there's a lot of religious undertones in this movie that I do not remember at all as a kid.
Yeah, I caught that. Maybe that is why, I don't know. Like they changed that part of the movie and then they said, okay, we're not doing it anymore.
This is me like really reaching for something.
No, this is fun. We need theories because this is a wild shift.
Yeah, but I want to know, like, did they come in after it was a Christian music project and they changed that, or before?
Yeah, I don't know. Weird that happened, though. I feel like we don't hear about that a lot, like where everybody just kind of like sweeps out and then they bring in all new people, especially given that the all new people are like well-known people, like Rita Wilson and Hilary Duff.
Yeah, who at the time, getting Hilary Duff in a movie was like, that's what you wanted.
Huge, yeah. So...
Interesting.
I got that from IMDb. So part of me wonders if like the order of events here is wrong and maybe they changed the location from New York to LA and maybe all of those actors lived in New York and so then they decided to pick local people. That seems kind of weird, but I don't know. And the director changed? I don't know. Yeah, I don't know.
That's what makes it weird.
Yeah.
Interesting. This movie is very summer vibes to me and I feel like maybe we should have done this like right going into back to school because it seems kind of like right on the brink of back to school. It was originally entitled Heart of Summer, but then the film's release date was pushed from August to October, so the title was changed. So this is actually a fall movie.
It was giving sort of the crossover vibes because it's set at a school. So it feels like school, but also it gives like summer camp kind of.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's a good in between. It's great for all of the college students that are like just now starting classes. I feel like rush just ended for a lot of people, and so these first few weeks of school, this is appropriate for this time period, I feel.
Yeah, I love this movie so much. As much as I love it, the film was a box office flop, which I think we're used to seeing in the movies that we cover. But this I thought was crazy. The budget was $15 million and it made $14.9 million.
Rip.
I also found this like random thing because I was looking at what other movies were out at the same time. The movie Shark Tale came out the week before. You know that one with the fish.
I loved Shark Tale. See, how did I miss it? Maybe I missed Raise Your Voice because of Shark Tale.
Because we were still watching the animated movies at the time.
Yeah.
So Shark Tale came out the week before, and it was still making more than Raise Your Voice was on its opening weekend the following week.
Tragic.
Very tragic.
I think this movie also has like a 5 on Rotten Tomatoes or something really bad. Not that holds any weight for us.
One day we should take all of the movies that we've covered and see which one wins like the worst score on Rotten Tomatoes.
We should. I would like to rank them to just see.
Yeah, we should like take bets on it.
We should. We totally should. I wonder if they go in sort of like age order, because I could see like, you know, Barbie did great last year. I feel like just now, more recently, it's much more modern for these like very like female centric movies to, you know, do well critically and in the box office. So that would be interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, should we talk about the cast?
Let's do it.
Let's start with Hilary Duff, who plays Terry.
First of all, this is the first thing that bothered me. Hilary is not a Terry.
No, she's not a Terry. It was hard, as we were writing this outline, it was hard for me to call her Terry. I
kept putting Hilary.
Like Teresa? Absolutely not.
No.
Absolutely no. And also Terry, I don't like that name for this character either.
No.
It just felt wrong. I felt the same way about Jay also.
Really?
Yeah, but I don't know if that's just because he is Ian Wallace to me and he will never not be Ian Wallace from What a Girl Wants. So in my head, he was Ian every time he came up, and then they would say Jay, and that felt wrong.
Okay, gotcha. That's funny. Well, we've talked about Hilary Duff a million times on this podcast. She's been in the Lizzie McGuire movie, A Cinderella Story, The Perfect Man, Cadet Kelly, Cheaper by the Dozen, Gossip Girl. I didn't know she was in Gossip Girl, but she was.
Neither.
Season 3. And How I Met Your Father. Since we've talked about her so much, I kind of only wanted to deep dive on her in this movie specifically. So like I said, this movie came out soon after A Cinderella Story, and I think Hilary might have been like 16 or 17 when this was filming. And 4 of her songs play in the movie. It's Someone's Watching Over Me, Jericho, Fly, and Shine. And I didn't know that her 3rd studio album was her self-titled one.
No, I didn't know that.
But that's the one with these songs on it, and it came out just a few weeks before this movie came out.
Wow. I definitely had that CD. So I recognized a lot of the songs from this movie, which again made me just think, how did I miss this? I don't know.
I feel like it, maybe because it wasn't a Disney movie, it wasn't on Disney Channel. I don't know what it was on, to be honest.
Yeah.
I don't know how I caught it.
Well, if it didn't do well in box office, it probably didn't play on TV that much, so it was probably on DVD.
Oh, yeah, probably that too.
I don't know.
She said that she cried a lot in this movie, which I did notice.
I noticed too. It made me very impressed with her.
Yeah, and she said the emotional scenes weren't too much of a challenge, and she got used to crying in front of 200 crew members.
That's too many people.
It is. She said that working with Rita Wilson in this movie was especially amazing, which I thought was nice. And she also said she really loved this movie when she got to watch it back, and she thought that they did a really good job putting it all together.
That's so nice.
We love when an actor is proud of the movie that they've been in.
Okay, now let's talk about Oliver James, who plays Jay.
What did you think about him in this movie?
He was Ian Wallace. He was the same to me as he was in What a Girl Wants. And I completely forgot that he was in this until he came up, and then I remembered that you told me that he was in this. And I was just so happy to see him. I just love him.
I know. He was my biggest crush, I think, as a kid. Like, him in this movie, biggest crush.
I could see that.
I don't know if I ever connected that he was the same guy from What a Girl Wants, because I also had a crush on Ian Wallace in What a Girl Wants, but I don't know if I ever connected it as a kid. But yeah, we did talk about him a lot in our What a Girl Wants episode, and if you haven't listened to that one, basically he's only been in Raise Your Voice, What a Girl Wants, and a couple of small things here and there, and he quit acting and is now a psychotherapist.
I don't even have words. This is the example I always use whenever I'm talking about the podcast. I'm like, yeah, it's always interesting when we talk about child or teen stars that act and then they go off to have a more, quote unquote, normal or average career. He's always the example that I use because it's just wild to me that he became a therapist, but so cool.
Yeah, and if you look him up on social media, it's only like spiritual therapy posts. There's nothing else. And so it's kind of interesting.
The way that I would fall on the floor if I booked an appointment with a new therapist, because I'm sure he looks very different, and especially like in his headshots online. Okay.
He looks the exact same.
So you would know. But like if I walked into a therapy office and Ian Wallace was sitting there, I should call him Jay because that's what we're going to call him in this episode, and he was sitting there, I would pass away. I don't know what I would do. I would be starstruck.
I feel like we had this conversation last time too.
Probably.
Part of me, when I was looking at his therapy website and it said that he did online consultations, I was like,
oh my God,
do I switch to him as my therapist? And I was like, no, I think that's a conflict of interest.
Immediately books a consultation. But how many people have done that? Certainly he's had them before.
I don't know. He only has like 300 followers on Instagram.
I'm going to follow him. Well, that would be the problem then. If we followed him on Instagram and then requested a consult and then he saw that one of his clients was following him, that would be a giveaway, maybe.
Maybe. Yeah, I purposely like didn't put his handles in anything in our outline because I was like, I don't know if he wants to be found for this, honestly.
Yeah. Just all the What We're Watching listeners just flood his DMs.
Ian Wallace, be my therapist.
Yeah.
I did find this quote from his therapy website that I thought was interesting. He said, "Prior to starting practice, my careers included both the creative and business fields. I believe this finds me well placed to understand a variety of client backgrounds. My passion for personal healing and the wellness of our shared humanity is ultimately what led me to this vocation. It brings me great joy to offer this work in service toward the benefit of all beings. One of my strengths as a therapist and person is that I am as engaged in people's difficulty, pain, wounding, heartache, and loss as I am in sharing their good fortune, growth, joy, happiness, and well-being. My interest in spirituality and personal development are what anchors me in this life, and I feel blessed to offer work that I am passionate about."
Wow. Love that. He's so into it.
Yeah.
It's great.
Yeah, I feel like sometimes when we see these actors who like change careers and now they're like a lawyer, like Kate from Lizzie McGuire, I'm like, oh, I wonder if like she wanted to continue being an actor but then just became a lawyer. I don't know. I like hearing though straight from the guy. He's like, yeah, I love my career. This is what I'm supposed to be doing.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Also, I wish that I had found this tweet in our What a Girl Wants episode, but in 2019, he replied this to someone on Twitter about his character in the movie, and I would assume that he feels the same way about Raise Your Voice. He said, "A heartfelt thank you, and the same to everyone who spent time watching me perform when they were younger. What a lucky guy Ian Wallace was to have so many dedicated, beautiful, and inspirational admirers. He and I are so proud of you all."
Why does that make me want to cry? I'm like, he's talking to me.
I know.
He's proud of me. That's cute, though.
He had this to say about working with Hilary on Raise Your Voice. He said, "She's a nice and kind person, and working with people like that makes the day go so much quicker." And then Hilary said that she really liked working with him and that he's cute.
He is cute.
He is. He auditioned and was hired as an American for the role, but Hilary said that she fought for his English accent to stay in the movie.
Good for her.
Thank you, Hilary. Because I was obsessed when I was a kid.
For sure.
And then he always was a singer, but he learned guitar for What a Girl Wants. And he said that for this role, he just had to familiarize himself again with the guitar, which is nice.
Okay, let's talk about Jason Ritter, who plays Paul, Terry's brother.
He's from Gravity Falls, Parenthood, a bunch of other things. Is there anything major I'm missing?
Parenthood is what I knew him from. I think that's probably what you guys will recognize him from, if anything.
He's married to Melanie Linsky, and you'd know her if you saw her. She's from The Last of Us, Yellow Jackets, and 2.5 Men. And I thought this was interesting. Jason has struggled with alcoholism, and he talks about how his relationship with Melanie gave him the strength to get sober. In 2023, he said, "I thought she would be incredible for someone who deserved her, basically, and I didn't feel like I was that person. It was only after a year into not drinking where I started to go, oh, maybe I can promise some things to someone else. Maybe I can be this person."
Aw, that's very sweet.
Yeah.
Okay, now let's talk about John Corbett. Is it Corbett or Corbett?
I think that we flip-flop on this one. You guys will have to tell us. I don't know.
Yeah. He plays Mr. Torvald.
We just did a deep dive on him in our My Big Fat Greek Wedding episode, and when I tell you I was shocked to see him in this movie, I was shocked. And he looked so different.
He was another one where I was like, whoa, everyone is here. He does look so different in this. He has like a mustache and a beard and long hair. And Brian pointed out that he looks very much like Paul Rudd, and I agree.
Wait, he kind of does.
Right? They could be like, I feel like brothers.
That's weird because I feel like in real life, no, not at all.
Mm-mm.
I didn't think we were going to dive into him in this movie. I actually originally just called him out in the outline. Then I found stuff, so I have to share it with you guys. So, though they weren't in any scenes together in this movie, many years later he was in Parenthood with Jason Ritter. And so I thought that was cool. And then something that John said about this movie is that he wanted one of the teachers to have a little bit of rock and roll. And he asked if he could smash a cello. And they said, that isn't really the movie we want to make.
He's like, now is actually not your time to be Jack Black in School of Rock. This is not that.
Although he still did like hit the cello to the floor in one scene.
And he was the cool teacher. So mission accomplished.
Yeah, I think he definitely is the reason why that teacher was a little more cool. And also his acting was great, I thought.
Yeah, I thought so too.
So here's where things get a little crazy. He said about Hilary at the time, "I kind of knew who she was, but didn't because I'm a little older. But now I do, and I love her. I love Hilary Duff, and I want to do another movie with her." And I was like, oh, that's a cute quote. Let me see if they've done anything else together. The two of them date in How I Met Your Father.
No.
And I completely forgot this was him.
No.
There's a 26-year age difference, and that was part of the show.
Okay, so it's acknowledged in the show, at least. Okay.
It is. It's supposed to be kind of creepy.
Okay, that makes me feel better.
The executive producer of the show, Ellen Berger, said, "As we sort of got further along in the process, we were like, oh, right, cool. He did this movie with Hilary a million years ago. And then we thought, is that weird? And then we thought, no, it's awesome. Hilary's a grown woman now, and everyone can handle it." And then on Late Night with Seth Meyers, he pointed out to Hilary that John Corbett once played her teacher, and Hilary said, "He sure did, and now we are smooching it up. It would have been very, very bad. It did not happen then. She's 35 now. It's cool."
I don't like it. It makes me uncomfy.
It does.
But also they acknowledge it, so whatever.
It is super weird, though. He knew her as a kid, basically.
Mostly, actually, I don't hate that it happened in the show. I just hate that he played her teacher before.
Yeah.
Because she's such a child in this movie that it's weird then to be like, the next time they worked together, it was as love interest. I don't like that.
That's what I'm saying. I was like, oh, maybe he played her dad in a movie. I'm Googling it, and then I'm like, ah, never mind.
Jump scare.
Jump scare indeed.
We need a palate cleanser. So now let's talk about Rita Wilson, who plays Terry's mom, Frances.
She's known for Sleepless in Seattle, Jingle All the Way, Runaway Bride, and so many other things. You guys know her. I didn't know this, though. Her birth name is Margarita Ibrahimov. I'm probably butchering that, so sorry. Her mom was Greek and her dad was Bulgarian.
Wow, I didn't realize that.
Yeah. She's Tom Hanks's wife, and they've been married since 1988. And again, we just mentioned her in our My Big Fat Greek Wedding episode because she's basically the entire reason why that movie got made, and she was a producer on it. Why do we always time these so perfectly?
I know, it works out.
I know. She also produced Mamma Mia, Here We Go Again, and A Man Called Otto. I had no idea.
Oh, I didn't know that either. I love that she's part of the team behind Mamma Mia, both of them.
Agree.
Okay, now let's talk about Johnny Lewis, who plays Kiwi.
Okay, so we just had a palate cleanser. Warning, this is not a palate cleanser. This is bad again.
Perfect.
So he was in the OC, Sons of Anarchy, and The Runaways with Kristen Stewart. And he was also one of Drake's bandmates in Drake and Josh. I think that's what I know him from. I think he was like the drummer. He passed away in 2012 at age 28.
Wow.
I know. And the more I learned about his life, the more shocked I got. I think when I saw this, I was like, oh, I wonder what happened. I wonder if he got in an accident or he OD'd or something, because that's typically what we tend to hear about like young deaths in Hollywood.
Mm-hmm.
No. But before we get to that, first, he dated Katy Perry from 2005 to 2006.
Sharp left turn.
Yes.
Left turn away from premature death. Dated Katy Perry. Whoa. I had no idea who this person was. I don't think I recognized him from anything.
Really?
Yeah, maybe that was just before I would have realized that he was dating Katy Perry, probably, because I still would have been in elementary school, I think.
And how big was Katy Perry in 2005? I don't remember.
I don't know.
Maybe she wasn't like quite huge yet.
Yeah.
More interesting things I found out about his life is his parents attained the highest level in the Church of Scientology. And he used to be in Scientology training films, but then he left the church when he was in his early 20s.
Okay, wow. That's a big deal to leave, especially if your parents are that high up.
Yeah, so I was just like piecing together what his life was like before tragedy started happening. So Johnny got in a motorcycle accident in 2011, and he suffered severe head trauma, but he refused to take an MRI. And then he started behaving really bizarrely and getting into legal trouble for assaulting people and attempting to break into a woman's home.
Mm.
And I think he went to rehab, and then he went to jail and was released on September 21st, 2012, and he died 5 days later.
Wow, that's really sad.
Yeah, but this is where it's going to get a little graphic, so trigger warning to anybody who like doesn't like true crime stuff or violent things.
Like you.
Like me.
Oh, I'm just imagining you researching this. It gets worse and worse.
When I tell you that I was fascinated, though, I couldn't tear myself away because I was like, I remember this guy from being a kid. So anyway, skip like a minute if you're squeamish. So he bludgeoned his 81-year-old landlady to death and killed her cat.
Oh my gosh.
Jumped over a fence to the next door neighbor's property and assaulted the homeowner and a house painter. Then jumped back over the fence back to his landlady's place. And he ended up falling from the roof and died, which is just a crazy story. So they found him, I think, like in the driveway or something. And then they found the landlady and the cat.
Wow.
And it was determined that it was an accidental fall and that he had no drugs or alcohol in his system at all.
Wow.
And it's really sad. His family has since spoken out about his untreated head trauma, and many people speculate that this is what caused his sudden spurts of violence.
Sure. Scary. Scary and very tragic.
Yeah.
What a wild life overall. Especially like seeing him in this movie, he's such a like lighthearted, funny, quirky side character.
I loved him in this movie.
Oh, same. And then to learn all of this about him is tough.
Yeah, the untreated head trauma, I think, is like the scariest part of this whole thing, is that it just completely changed him.
Very scary, very sad.
Yeah. Okay, now we need an actual palate cleanser. Sorry.
Yeah. It's okay. Last but not least, we have Kat Dennings, who plays Sloane.
She's from Two Broke Girls, The House Bunny, Thor, Dollface, Nick and Nora's Infinite Playlist, a bunch more. Her real name is Catherine Litwack, but she chose Dennings as her professional last name because she thought her family name was hideous. That's her quote, not mine. And she wanted to know when people actually knew her or not, which I could see that. Like, okay, if they know my actual last name, then they actually know me. She said her family never had much money for formal acting training, and her first acting job was an advertisement for potato chips that included a poisonous ingredient and never made it to market.
Rip.
All of these facts are so weird about this movie. I don't know why. She graduated early at age 14 after being homeschooled and moved to LA to pursue acting full-time. And this was actually her debut movie. She'd only been in a TV movie and some TV show episodes like CSI prior to this.
Wow.
And she would have been about 17 or 18.
And she plays the Kat Dennings character, I feel like. It stuck with her, I feel like.
The emo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It reminds me very much of her character in The House Bunny, and I love that movie.
Oh, agree. Yeah, she's actually very similar to that. I think maybe House Bunny was soon after this, if I'm not mistaken. She used to date Josh Groban, which I think I knew but forgot. And she recently married musician Andrew W.K. at their home in LA, and their wedding photos were gorgeous.
Oh, I'll have to look at them.
And then most recently, she's been attached to a new sitcom called Shifting Gears that will star her and Tim Allen, of all people. And Tim Allen will be a widower who runs a classic car workshop, and Kat will play his estranged daughter who shows up with her teenage children.
Wow. Okay, interesting.
Yeah, we'll see if it gets made. I don't know. I've heard Tim Allen is not great to work with, so.
Yeah, we talked about him in our episode on the Santa Claus, and there were definitely mixed opinions of him, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm. Okay, should we get into the movie?
Let's do it. Text appears on screen that says, "Music is a higher revelation than all wisdom and philosophy. Ludwig van Beethoven." Then Joy to the World / Jeremiah Was a Bullfrog starts playing, and we see Terry, played by Hilary Duff, singing along to it in choir practice at school. She and her classmates are all really into it, and when they finish, their choir teacher, Mr. Holcomb, tells everyone to have a good summer. Then he tells Terry he'll see her tomorrow for rehearsal, and that he sent in the recommendation she requested, and she thanks him.
Then Terry's friend Lauren, played by Davita Williams, asks her if she's really going to rehearsal tomorrow, and Terry says, "Call me a dork, but I love choir practice, and I don't want to let him down."
Fun fact, Davita Williams was in Lizzie McGuire with Hilary.
Aww.
She played the mean girl Kate's best friend, and we actually mentioned her in our Lizzie McGuire movie episode because she co-hosted a Lizzie McGuire podcast with the guy who plays Lizzie's little brother, Matt.
Aww.
Full circle here.
Love. Then a boy named Matthew, played by Fred Myers, he's from Even Stevens, stops Terry in the hall to give her the concert tickets she's buying from him. He says he'll see her at rehearsal and then shakes her hand when they're done with their deal and then giggles and runs away. It's like very hilarious and cute. Lauren says he's going to spend the whole next month hoping he didn't get her pregnant from the handshake, and Terry just laughs and says, "Oh, shut up, he's so nice."
We see everyone filing out of school, and there's a zoom in on the banner that says, "Riverdale High School proudly congratulates our graduating seniors." A boy films Terry and Lauren on a camcorder, and he says to Lauren, "What are you doing tonight?" And Terry says, "Paul, stop hitting on my friend." Lauren says, "Whatever you're doing tonight." And Terry says, "Lauren, stop hitting on my brother. Ew." Paul tells Terry to tell their mom he's going to be late for his graduation barbecue.
At the barbecue, Terry's Aunt Nina, who's played by Rebecca De Mornay from Risky Business, asks what Terry's up to this summer, and Terry says she's singing in choir and working at the family restaurant. She says she really wants to get into a music summer program in August, but then Terry's dad, Simon, played by David Keith, interjects and says, "It's some music thing in LA. Terry says, "Dad, come on, it's not just some music thing in LA. It's Bristol Hillman Music Conservatory, only the best summer music program on the West Coast, maybe even the whole country." And he says, "Terry, don't start." Terry says it's so important to her because she already sent in her application and a CD because her mom said she could. And Simon says she's not going. And then Aunt Nina tells Simon not to be so close-minded. This is a good depiction of their relationship, of like Simon being the harsh dad of like what I say goes.
Mm-hmm. Then Paul shows up to the barbecue late and asks Terry what's wrong because it's obvious that she's upset. When he finds out what happened, he stands up for Terry going to the summer music program, and he and their dad get into a fight. Paul says his dad hasn't seen the world, and just because he's stuck there, he wants everyone stuck with him. Paul ends up lighting the barbecue on fire with grill fuel during their fight, and then Simon grounds him.
Later on that night, Paul sits on the porch and Aunt Nina comes out to talk to him, and she says she never got the chance to congratulate him on getting into Arizona State, and Paul says, "At least I'm getting out of here." He tells Aunt Nina that if Terry gets into the music program, she has to make sure she goes, or Terry will suffocate staying here in Arizona. Aunt Nina agrees with him and says she's always on his side.
Later, Terry's writing a song in her room, and Paul records her with his camcorder. He goes back to his room and edits the video, and then we see this compilation of clips of Terry singing. Paul smiles as he rewatches these, and then burns them onto a DVD and sticks it in the mail.
Then when he comes back, Terry's in his room looking at the full moon through a telescope, and she surprises him with the concert tickets she bought from Matthew at school. They're going to see 3 Days Grace tonight. And Paul says, "Oh no, didn't you hear I was grounded?" And Terry says it's not like he never breaks the rules and begs him to go. And then he gives in very easily and just says, "Side window?" And she says, "Side window." So they roll his car out of the driveway, and then we see Aunt Nina watching them from the balcony with a glass of wine, and she's just laughing.
A true wine aunt. I love her.
I know.
In the car, Paul tells her he's not staying in Flagstaff. He's got a job lined up in Phoenix and he's going straight to Arizona State. He says it's just time and he feels bad about leaving her. She says she gets along with their dad just fine, and he says that's what worries him because she's always trying to please their parents. He asks her if it hurt when their dad shut down her Bristol Hillman dream, and she says it totally hurt. He says, then make a scene, break something, scream. And I don't know why, but that's the quote that I always remember from this movie.
Yeah, I love that quote. I feel like this resonated with a lot of women our age, probably, at least because I know I can relate to Terry's character being like, she's not even the oldest daughter, but like it just gives oldest daughter energy of like, you want to do everything right. And so to have a brother that's like, you don't have to do everything right. You just need to do what you want to do, what's going to make you happy. And like that encourages her and isn't afraid to make a little noise, I think is very cute.
Yeah, I agree.
Paul and Terry get right to the front of the 3 Days Grace concert. And they're so excited and they're singing along. And then Paul gets a guy to help him lift Terry up so she can see better. And she sings while they carry her and she gets to touch hands with the lead singer while she's up on their shoulders. You can tell they're just having the best time.
I feel like I don't even have to say this, but I'm going to anyway, that's actually 3 Days Grace that's playing.
Yes.
And I think that's cool.
Yeah, it is cool.
Anyone who's a big fan of them probably loved this. That night, Terry and Paul sing Are You Ready in the car on the way home from the concert. And as they turn into an intersection, Paul is singing at Terry, and then we see headlights and hear Terry scream, Paul, look out! He sees the truck coming, and then turns back to look at Terry. They lock eyes, and then everything turns white as we hear the crash.
I had no idea that there was a tragedy in this movie, okay?
Aww.
Until they're in the car. The second they're in the car, I was like, he's gonna die. Fuck me. I know he's gonna die. He's about to die. I just knew it. And then the whole movie changes, you know?
I just remember this making me so sad as a kid and just thinking it was so tragic. And it is, but I think this is maybe like 15 minutes into the movie. It's very quick. We don't know Paul very well yet.
Mm-hmm. But it feels like we do.
Yeah, I think they did a really good job with that. But I just remember as a kid it being so much heavier, you know?
Yeah. Because there's not a lot of this. I was about to say, there's not a lot of this in kid movies, but actually there's a ton of this. There's always somebody that dies at the beginning.
True.
But this, for some reason, I agree. It feels like it has more weight.
Yeah.
So Terry wakes up in the hospital, and her mom, Frances, is asleep with her head on the hospital bed, and she's stunned when Terry wakes up. She starts crying, and she holds her, and you can tell she's so relieved that Terry is awake. And Terry says, Paul, and her mom says, no, and sobs into Terry's shoulder.
It makes me so sad to think that her mom thought she lost both kids.
I know.
So sad.
Also, where is her dad?
Getting snacks.
Don't even get me started on the dad. I can't talk about him.
Yeah, he's piece of work, that one.
Mm-hmm.
Sean McNamara, who's the director, actually has a cameo in this next scene. He plays the doctor. And the doctor asks Terry her birthday, and her dad, Simon, interrupts and says April 20th. The doctor says to let Terry get the next one.
Sorry, what an idiot. Like, he's asking your concussed daughter to answer questions very intentionally. And the dad is just like, I know it, April 20th. Like, shut up.
It didn't quite make sense, but yes. When the doctor asks Terry to tell him what month it is, she has a hard time speaking, and Simon says, what's wrong with her? Why can't she speak? Which, dude. She ends up saying June out loud, and then the doctor asks her to follow his light with her eyes, and it gives her a flashback to the headlights, and she freaks out and has PTSD. Simon tells the doctor to stop, and then he holds Terry and he kisses her on the forehead.
And then we see a montage of the family grieving. We see them at the grave. They're hardly able to eat dinner. They don't speak a lot. And then Terry and Lauren, again, Lauren is her best friend, sit in a booth at the family restaurant while Terry is working. And Lauren says that she wishes she was older because she's afraid she'll say something stupid and make it worse. This moment is so relatable, I think. For people really of any age, I think it's really hard to know how to support somebody going through this.
Yeah, and I would assume that Lauren is also going through it because she was dating him.
Yeah. And then we see them at the funeral, and the choir is performing there without Terry.
One day, Terry checks the mail and has a letter from Bristol Hillman. It's an acceptance letter, but she closes the mailbox and goes inside. Aunt Nina and Terry's mom, Frances, show up at the restaurant while Terry is working, and Frances pulls out the crumpled letter and asks why it was in the trash. She says Paul would be so proud of her. Terry says if Paul were here, he'd just get into another screaming fight with their dad about it. She says she doesn't want to sing anymore. Aunt Nina says she doesn't believe that and says to let her handle her dad on this.
So at dinner that night, Terry tells Simon that she thinks Terry should come stay with her for a while and live with her in Palm Desert for the month of August. He asks who's going to help him with the restaurant, and Aunt Nina asks if that's really what he wants to say. And Simon gets it from the table and leaves. So we can tell he's not happy about it, but he also isn't screaming about it.
Terry and Aunt Nina go outside, and Terry feels bad that Nina lied to her dad. And Nina tells her that Simon and his best friend got football scholarships to UCLA, but their parents weren't doing well, and Simon felt no choice but to take on the family restaurant instead of going to school. His friend still went to UCLA and got caught up in the LA scene and has been messed up ever since. Aunt Nina says, I know if your dad would have taken that scholarship, he would have made it. Terry says, what does that have to do with me? And Nina says, I don't know, everything? But it's your decision, Terry.
The next day, Terry sees her mother sobbing while packing up Paul's room, and she comes in the room to sit with her, and then Frances, her mom, gives Terry Paul's cross necklace that he always wore and says that he would have wanted her to have it. Terry cries and says she shouldn't have snuck him out, and Frances tells her it isn't her fault. Terry says she still feels so bad all the time and she can't go and lie to her dad. Frances says she'll tell Simon when the time is right, and he'll be mad at first, but he'll realize it was the right thing to do. Terry asks, are you sure it's the right thing to do? And her mom says, no, I'm not sure of anything. I just want you to be happy. So Terry says she'll do it.
Frances and Terry are in the car getting ready to leave, and Simon comes out to say goodbye. Frances says that she's taking Terry to the train station and Nina will pick her up on the other end. Simon gives Terry a ton of cash, which you can tell means a lot to Terry because they don't have a lot of money. And Simon says he doesn't want Nina to have to pay for everything and tells Terry to call if she wants to come home early. Then Frances drops Terry off at the train station. And, this is the thing about Simon is, he's a tough, strict dad, but you can also tell that he really loves her. He's,
Totally.
Overprotective.
Yeah, it's the very, I will not get on my soapbox for this, but it's the very classic 2000s, early 2000s, just, toxic masculinity dad who just doesn't know how to express his emotions, but you can tell he really cares.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So now we're in LA. And as Terry tries to get into a taxi, she can't handle all of her suitcases and stuff by herself, and her jacket gets stolen. And her taxi driver just says, welcome to LA, baby. It's gone. In the taxi, we see a bunch of shots of the LA skyline mixed with Terry seeing people sitting on street corners and digging through dumpsters, and she takes it all in.
It's very different than what she's experienced before, and I actually did see some criticism for the movie about this, oh, LA is so urban, and I don't know. The way that they talked about LA, I think people found offensive a little bit. When Terry gets to Bristol Hillman Conservatory, she's locked out and can't get in. She knocks and calls for someone to let her in, and a guy with frosted tips and an English accent, played by Oliver James, opens the door and says, sorry, full up, and closes it again. She knocks again and he says, are you going to make a habit out of this? She says it's late and she's tired and all she wants to do is get up to her dorm. He asks her, what's the password? And smiles at her. And this is where she can tell that he's messing with her. Terry says she thinks they started off on the wrong foot and introduces herself. And he introduces himself as Jay. He lets her in and says, it's monkeys, by the way, the password.
I'm just now realizing that this is so similar to when Amanda Bynes' character meets him in What a Girl Wants because he's working at a hostel.
Yeah, I think that's why I always get these two movies mixed up a little bit. Is because of this introduction scene with him.
Totally. So as Jay helps Terry find her room, a girl named Robin, played by Lauren C. Mayhew, says, Jay, there you are. I sent you out for a snack and you bring home a stray. Shame. And she kisses him. And Terry says, hey, I'm Terry. And Robin says, uh-huh, and then laughs at her. So immediate mean girl energy from Robin.
Mm-hmm.
Terry tells Jay that she's got it from here and leaves them to find her own room. And then as Jay and Robin walk away, Robin tries to put her arm around him, but he brushes her off and asks what that was all about.
Terry bursts into her dorm room and accidentally knocks over stuff, waking up her roommate, Denise, played by Dana Davis. Terry apologizes and introduces herself, and Denise says, great, and I thought I had this place to myself. Now turn out the damn light.
I love Denise.
I love her too.
Terry steps out in the hall to try to get cell service and ends up on the rooftop balcony. She's in awe over the view of LA at night. You can tell this is her first time in a big city, and I think this is just really cool that she ends up on the roof and, gets to see it all. She calls her Aunt Nina, and then they conference her dad into the call to make it seem like they're together. And Nina and Terry have to make up an excuse of why they're calling so late. And then when Simon asks what they're doing tonight, one says watching TV and the other says eating dinner. And then they have to cover that they're actually doing both. They're like, oh, we're eating dinner while we're watching TV. Simon says he thought Nina didn't have a television, and she says that she finally gave in and got one. Simon says he'll let them get some sleep and tells Nina not to corrupt his baby. Nina says she'll have her tattooed with blue hair and dating a rapper in no time. And then after they hang up, Terry looks at the full moon and says, well, Paul, I'm here. I hope you're happy.
The next day, Terry goes to orientation, where the students watch a concert where 4 people play violins and a cello. The guy playing the cello has long hair and isn't as buttoned up as the other adults. He stands up and starts strumming wildly, stealing the show. It's very rock and roll. And this is John Corbett. A teacher at the podium, Mr. Gantry, played by James Avery from Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, tells everyone that these talented musicians are their teachers. He welcomes them to the program and reminds them how many students applied and didn't get into the program. He says that on the last day in 3 weeks, the students will give final performances, and one lucky student will get a $10,000 academic scholarship for music study.
After orientation, Terry goes to Mr. Torvald's class. Again, this is John Corbett's character. And he's very energetic and likable, but his class is tough. You can tell that he's the fun teacher, but he's not going to cut anybody any slack. And he says there are only 5 solos in the ensemble they'll be learning, and he'll pick the soloists in 2 weeks.
Then we see Jay playing guitar and jamming with a bunch of kids in the courtyard, and students jump in to riff with whatever instrument they have. I think that's a really cool thing about this school, is everyone just kind of jumps in and does stuff together. Terry brings her lunch tray to a wall where a girl, played by Kat Dennings, is sitting, and she asks her if she can sit with her. The girl grabs her bag and walks away as soon as Terry sits down, and Terry shrugs and watches Jay play. He catches her eye and they smile at each other, but Robin notices this and she isn't happy about it.
In Terry's next class, Mr. Wesson uses a tuning fork and asks who knows what note it makes. Almost everyone raises their hand, but Terry doesn't. So obviously he calls on Terry. She guesses a B, and he says B flat. He tells the class it's a great asset to know any note when you hear it, and those who don't have the ability to do that must work much harder. He's intense, but you can tell Terry admires him.
After class, Terry trips down some stairs, and there's a boy sitting on the stairs with DJ equipment, and he jumps up and apologizes. This is Kiwi, played by Johnny Lewis. And when she leaves, Kiwi gets excited that he recorded her scream on his DJ equipment. Then he sees the girl that Terry tried to sit with at lunch. This is Sloane, played by Kat Dennings, and his mouth drops open. He says, she doesn't even know. And that will come back.
Terry gets back to her dorm and asks Denise how it's going, and Denise very snappily says, couldn't be better. Terry asks her if she should ask for a single room because she feels like she's a big pain in her butt. And Denise says it's not like that, and she's just here to focus on the scholarship. She says she just wants to do her thing and not get caught up in any personalities, but she doesn't mean anything by it. Denise asks if they're cool, and they fist bump.
The next day in class, Robin is a suck-up to Mr. Torvald and says she's gunning for those solos. Terry overhears this and kind of judges her, you can tell. The class sings Hallelujah, not the Leonard Cohen Shrek one, but like the Hallelujah one.
Mm-hmm.
And Terry accidentally sings off-key, and Mr. Torvald stops them. Terry says, sorry, that was me. And Robin says, yeah, we know. Mr. Torvald says, and you are? And when she says her name, he says he thought he recognized her, the girl from the DVD. She's confused by this. Then he tells Robin she did a good job, and they start singing again. So we see that Robin is definitely the class pet.
Then we see all the other students in their classes. Sloane, who plays the piano, Denise plays the violin. And then Terry runs into Mr. Wesson's empty classroom and apologizes, and he says, it's your time that was wasted. Please go to the stand. He starts the metronome and makes her sight read the first page of music, and she sings in Italian, and he snaps at her the whole time to use her diaphragm. He says, air goes in, diaphragm goes out. It's okay to look fat.
After that, Terry accidentally walks in on Sloane playing piano, and Sloane stops and gives her the death stare. Terry apologizes and leaves, and then Sloane keeps playing. She's very intense.
Mm-hmm. In the courtyard, Kiwi and Terry sit together eating lunch, and he plays his mix that he made about Sloane to try to get her attention. In the song, his voice repeats, She doesn't even know. And he bangs on his lunch tray and plates with his silverware. Then Sloane gets up and leaves, and Kiwi hands Terry her spoon back and says, thanks anyway.
While walking on the streets of LA, Terry sees a church and goes inside. While listening to the priest, she touches Paul's cross necklace. When she leaves church, she sees a penny on the ground tails up, and she flips it over to be heads up. As she stands up, Jay is there watching her, and he says, you're a serious weirdo, you know that? She says, it isn't lucky unless it's face up. And he says, now it's just a penny that thinks it's lucky, but it isn't. She says, now it can be lucky for someone else. Besides, haven't you heard of making your own luck? He smiles and picks it up, saying, well, what do you know? A lucky penny. And when I tell you I thought that this was the most deep thing ever when I was a kid.
Just so clever.
I used to go around flipping over pennies if they were tails up because I wanted to be Hilary Duff.
So they walk together, and Terry asks him how an Englishman ended up in LA. And he says his parents went through a nasty divorce and put an ocean between them. He says music became a religion to him and keeps him sane, and he can't think of a better way to spend his life. Then he asks if she's missing home and gets her to open up about the car accident. But just as she's telling him about the drunk driver going through a red light, Denise calls her from across the street. And Jay says he's got to go meet somebody and dips out really quickly. And you can tell Terry's just kind of like taken aback by this for a second. But then she catches up with Denise, and Denise asks if Jay was macking on her because he likes to hit on nice girls.
Did they ever explain why he left so quickly when Denise came?
I don't think so.
Weird. I feel like we're missing a scene or something.
Yeah, agreed.
They go inside a lobby, and Denise starts playing electric violin for everybody there. People start dropping money in her violin case, and she's really, really good. Then Terry gets a call and has to run outside. Simon asks her how it's going and says that he misses her. And as she's talking to him, a siren passes, and she tries to cover it up, but it's getting hard to keep up the charade.
In Mr. Torvald's class, they're singing Hallelujah again, and Terry's voice cracks again. And Terry says, I can never get that note. I can't believe this. And Robin says, I can. I think some of us need to practice this more outside of class. But Mr. Torvald holds Terry back after class and says, okay, I give up. What did you do with the girl in the DVD? The lively, funny, talented girl? What'd you do with her? And she says that she sent her songs on a CD, and he tells her there was also a DVD. She's obviously confused. But then he sits her down and tells her that it came in late, but that it's a big part of why she's there. She says she didn't send it and has no idea what he's talking about. So then he says he's going to introduce her to one interesting, fascinating lady, and maybe she'll be inspired like the teachers were. And he plays her the DVD, and it's the DVD that Paul made, that we saw him putting together at the beginning of the movie. And we see Paul in the DVD saying, Terry's my sister, and she's my favorite person in the whole world. She likes challenge, she thrives when she's pushed, and the people who can do that, they don't live in Flagstaff. Terry deserves a chance to learn from the best. She's already good, but she could be great. Let her in, you won't be disappointed. And Terry starts crying while she's watching this. And then we see all the clips of Terry singing freely with her brother at home and in the choir. And Terry starts to sob and runs out of the classroom. And then Jay sees her in the hallway crying and chases after her.
Terry starts packing up the things in her dorm in a frenzy and accidentally breaks Paul's cross necklace. Jay catches up with her, and Terry says, the show's over, okay? You can go now. He says she can't leave, it's copping out. And he says, let's get out of here. The bag isn't walking away. And she says, how do I know you won't?
Then Terry and Jay sit at a restaurant on the pier at the beach, and Terry finally finishes telling him about the car accident. She says the second she starts to enjoy herself, his voice comes inside her head and says, how can you be having a good time when Paul is dead? He tells her she can't blame herself like that, and she says, you don't understand. It was my fault. I got him to sneak out. I shouldn't have risked it. And he says, look, Terry, some idiot ran a red light. It was bad luck, messed up timing. That's all. I feel like she needed to hear that.
Tell me why his psychotherapist is showing.
I know.
In this role.
I know, it really is.
They walk on the beach. He says he can't imagine what she's going through, but he knows from experience that backing down can become a way of life. He says, don't leave. Screw the pressure and the scholarship. Do your own thing. Get what you came here for. She asks him why he cares so much, and he says he likes her. She says, and Robin fits into that how? He says they met here last year, and they had a thing for a while, but it's all over. Terry says, does she know that? He says some people hang on when they should just let go, and then he puts his arm around Terry, and they walk together on the beach.
And then we have the iconic scene that's like extremely cringe. I can't. You guys will remember this, I'm sure. We're back in Mr. Torvald's class, and Terry has to sing scales, and they're like each having to stand up one at a time to do scales in front of the class. And her voice cracks, and everyone kind of cringes. But then she starts riffing at the end in like a very like Christina Aguilera way.
Mm-hmm.
And the class, and like by the end of her doing this riffing, the class is cheering, and Mr. Torvald, I think, is like clapping, and he says, "All right, you take the top of the fourth," which means she's going to get a solo, right?
Yeah, I think so.
And he goes to give her a high five, but Robin thinks that he's saying this to her and giving her a high five, which makes no sense that she would think that he was talking to her, but she does it right in front of Terry. And then Mr. Torvald is like, "I was talking to Terry." And then he and Terry do this like wiggle finger high five. It's very cute. And they start singing Hallelujah from the top. And Terry has a renewed passion and confidence. You can tell she like feels much better about herself. And Mr. Torvald takes notice about this.
I think something that makes this scene so cringe is there are several different voices singing the scales for Hilary's part.
It hurts. Is it her sister? Do you know?
I don't know, but it usually is her sister, so I guessed that, but I don't know.
It sounded a lot like in the Lizzie McGuire movie when she is singing with Isabella on stage, and you can tell that it, like, at certain notes are definitely sung by a different person. It sounds like exactly like that, and I know that that was her sister, so that makes me think maybe her sister helped her with this.
As much as I love Hilary, I feel like she was maybe, like, a weird cast for this project, because I feel like they would pick someone who has, like, more powerful vocals than her, maybe.
Yeah, they do talk a lot throughout this movie about her having like the biggest, most beautiful voice. And I think she's a great singer, but I don't think that she is that. Like, I don't think she is like, she opens her mouth and you're just like struck by how incredibly naturally talented and gifted she is. The way that, I know I just said Christina Aguilera, but when Christina Aguilera sings in burlesque and like everybody is just like shook and it's supposed to be like, you know, her like insane natural talent, this is not that.
No, but I think they were, like, aiming for that, which is why it's off.
Totally. Yep, totally.
Terry goes to her session with Mr. Wesson, and she sings the Italian song again, but this time perfectly, and he's so impressed. Then she walks into the school theater and finds Jay playing piano. He's singing and writing an original love song, and he's surprised and embarrassed when he turns around and sees her watching him. She starts leaving, and he apologizes and says that he just gets weird when he's writing because his lyrics are sensitive. Terry says she's been writing songs for a long time, and her lyrics always feel cheesy too. He starts playing again, and Terry helps him write, and she helps him like beef up the lyrics because they are a little cheesy.
Then we see Terry and Jay sitting together outside during lunch, and Kiwi comes up to them saying his heart has been ripped out because Sloane doesn't care that he exists. Terry says that she's heard Sloane in the practice rooms and that she's really talented. She also asks Kiwi if he's ever talked to Sloane, and he says no, so Terry offers to introduce them.
Sloane rehearses on the piano, and Terry Knox comes in and introduces herself. We can tell that Sloane is annoyed by the interruption. Terry starts talking up Kiwi and invites Sloane to hang out with them. Sloane says, "Kiwi is a weird name. Why would he have a crush on me? That's stupid." Terry says they're meeting in the lobby at 7 if she wants to join.
Back in their room, Denise asks Terry if she's with Jay now, and she says, "Yeah, kinda, he's really cool." And Denise says, "Well, what about Robin?" And Terry says, "They're over," but Denise says, "Yeah, right." While they're talking, Denise is going through her closet, and Terry compliments one of her dresses, and Denise tells her it's from her mom's clothing store, which isn't doing well, which is why it's really important that Denise tries to win the scholarship.
Out of everyone, she's the one who actually cares about the scholarship versus just winning, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Francis finds a note from Terry's dad saying that he's going to Nina's to check on Terry. Aunt Nina calls Terry to give her a heads up that her dad is on the way. And Terry says, "Oh my God, I'm dead." But then she spots Jay, and he gives her a ride to the train station so that she can try to make it to Palm Desert in time.
Then we cut to Aunt Nina's house in Palm Desert, and we see Terry's dad pulling up to the house, and Nina is inside panicking because Terry isn't there yet. But then as Nina tries to stall, Terry runs out into the living room, so she must have come in through the back of the house, and she hugs her dad, and it's like nothing ever happened. It's like she was there the whole time. Back at school, we see Kiwi and Jay waiting for the girls in the lobby because it's 7 o'clock, and Kiwi is freaking out that neither girl is going to show. But then we see Sloane, and she's dressed in this like full gown dress. It's very Renaissance Festival-esque, but I kind of love it.
And I think she's like, oh, what does she say?
I think she walks up to them and she's like, oh no. And then turns around and starts walking back to her room. But then Terry runs in at the last minute and is like, oh my gosh, Sloane, you look so cute. And then they all hang out. It's so cute.
Yeah. The four of them walk around LA, and Terry explains the lie that she's been telling her dad. And she's also wearing the dress from Denise's mom's shop. She takes the group to see Denise's street performance, and she puts a new sheet of music in front of Denise while she's playing. The two of them perform together. Denise plays violin, I think it's the electric violin, and Terry sings. They pull the rest of the group in to sing with them, and a crowd forms to watch. And we can tell Terry is having a really great time, maybe for the first time since her brother died. She's like really letting loose and performing.
Afterward, Terry takes Jay to the roof of their dorm to see the view, and she says she comes up here to think. And then a saxophone starts playing below, and Jay asks her to dance, and so they dance on the roof. It's so cute. And then he tries to kiss her, but she says she's not ready yet, but that she likes him a lot, and he says he likes her too. And then he suggests that they finish the song they were writing the other day and they use it for their final performance piece. And if they win, they can split the scholarship. And then she says, do you want to try that again? And they kiss.
Yay! We see a montage of Terry and Jay holding hands in the hallway, rehearsing together and writing their song. Then Terry, Jay, Denise, and Kiwi go watch an open mic night, and Jay says he's going to sign them up to practice their song live in front of an audience. Terry is nervous, but she doesn't stop him.
And then it's time for them to perform. And Terry starts facing the piano, not the audience, so her back is facing out because she's so nervous. And they have to start and stop a few times because she can't get her voice right when they start. And then finally, she does turn around to face the audience, but she sees the spotlight, and that gives her a flashback to the headlights from the car accident, and she runs off the stage crying. Jay runs after her, and she says that she just wasn't ready, and Jay says he was going to wait, but... and then pulls Paul's cross necklace out of his pocket and gives it to her, and they hug. It's very sweet.
He fixed it after it broke. It's so sweet.
Mm-hmm.
The next day, Terry is missing from Mr. Torvald's class. Robin says she'll fill in for Terry's solo, but Mr. Torvald says Terry earned it, so they'll wait for her. Robin storms out of class and starts banging a vending machine in the hallway. Jay sees her and stops to comfort her, and she says she doesn't understand how they fell apart and asks if they can talk privately. And you can tell she just had it all, and now because of Terry in her mind, she feels like she has nothing and she's losing everything, and she's just upset.
Terry goes to Mr. Torvald's office to apologize for missing class, and he says she must have been really sick to have missed his class. But she says she's just not ready for the solo, and he says he'll be the judge of that, and that if she's not ready to work, what is she doing here?
Robin and Jay talk in an empty classroom, and Robin flirts with Jay. Jay says he's not the same person he was last summer. Robin kisses him, and right as she's doing that, Terry walks in. And of course, she runs away immediately when she sees what's happening, and Jay runs after her.
Then we see Terry crying in her room, and she's ripping out pages of her journal. And then we see a montage of her alone, so we can tell this next part happens over the course of a few days. She's walking on the boardwalk, she's watching the sunset on the beach by herself, she's writing music, she's walking around school.
She sits outside of school one night, and Mr. Torvald comes out and sits with her. He says he's there for her if she wants to talk and apologizes for being hard on her the other day. He encourages her to keep going and says, artists convey emotion. They make the audience feel what they're feeling. You know that's what it's all about, right?
She wakes up in the middle of the night that night because Jay is drunkenly banging on her door, and she tells him to leave, and he says that what happened with Robin isn't what she thinks. He says he doesn't care about Robin, he only cares about Terry, and now he feels worthless. And Terry is like, we just have to get him out of here because he's drunk, and the night guard is not going to let him, walk around the halls like this. So Denise helps Terry carry him up to the roof, and Terry stays with him up there all night.
In the morning, she wakes him up, and they watch the sunrise together. He apologizes, and she says, save it, you're not forgiven yet. But she is smiling at him, and I think she has forgiven him, honestly.
Mm-hmm. It's a quick argument, I feel like, for what happened. I feel like they're over it in a few days.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Back at Terry's house, Simon asks Frances for her car keys, and when she doesn't answer because she's in another room, he starts looking for them in her purse, and he finds the invitation to Terry's final performance, and that's bad.
Bad.
Then Terry rehearses with Jay.
Then we cut to Terry's parents arguing about the lie, and her dad is in disbelief that everyone was in on it and was helping kind of conceal what Terry was doing for the last month. Terry's mom says, Your daughter got into the best music school in the country. Terry wanted to go. Paul wanted her to go. Paul, Terry's singing again. Why doesn't that matter to you? Simon says, what in God's name is wrong with you, Frances? Frances says, what's wrong with me? We just lost Paul and we were losing the only child we have left. But Simon says that he's so upset because he can't protect her if she's not here.
Sloane rehearses and she can't focus on her piano because Kiwi is banging in the room next door. So she storms down the hall and she yells at him. And this is the first time it's the most words that we've heard come out of her mouth, but also like the highest volume. And she says, you are the loudest, rudest jerk on the planet. And then he looks at her and smiles and then makes out with her. And she's so stunned. But then she smiles too and kisses him back. And then they just start violently making out in the room.
It's really funny.
We see another montage of everyone rehearsing. We see Terry, Jay, Denise, Sloane, Robin, and they're all practicing for their final performance.
And then it's final performance day. And Terry and Jay wait in the wings, but then she realizes that she doesn't have Paul's necklace. And she says, I need to have him here with me. She runs back to her dorm room and her dad is in there. And he says they're bringing her home right now. And he's already packing up her things. They have this little argument, and this was kind of nice to see, because I think this is the first time she's fought her dad back. So you can tell she's definitely thinking about what Paul told her, like it's okay to make a little noise. She says that everyone is afraid of him and he never listens. And then while they're having this argument, we flip back to the stage and we see that it's Kiwi's turn. And they announce Kiwi to come up on the stage, and we find out that his real name is Engelbert Wilson. And I think Jay maybe is the one that turns to him and is like, your real name is Engelbert?
And he just kind of like sheepishly shrugs, I think, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
We're back in Terry's room, and she says, Dad, this place is the scariest, hardest, best thing that has ever happened to me, no matter how I got here. And he says, we'll discuss it at home. She says, I'm not leaving. I did this for me, and I'm finishing it for me. You can take me home, but I'm performing any minute now, and it would mean the world to me if you and Mom watched me.
And then it's Terry and Jay's turn, and they're the last ones to go, and Terry walks out on stage at the last second. And we see Nina in the audience and her parents who walk in at the last minute, and she sees the spotlight, and instead of flashing back to the accident, she sees Paul's face like he's the lighting tech guy standing next to the light smiling at her. It's very cute, and it's very sweet that, like, she's able to have a new experience this time looking at the light, and then she dedicates their performance to Paul.
She and Jay crush their performance. The song is called Someone's Watching Over Me. Her mom is emotional watching from the audience, and it's very sweet, and we also see that her dad is emotional over it too. And we see Nina and Denise smiling and watching, and then her dad smiles and holds her mom's hand.
After the performance, Jay and Terry kiss in the wings, and she says nothing will ever top what I just felt. And then it's time to announce the winner, and this is the person that gets the scholarship, and it goes to Denise.
Yay.
Yay.
The one who deserved it most, I think. Also, quick note, all of a sudden, she just has the cross necklace back on, and I assume she hadn't lost it. She just had it in her dorm room, and then she grabbed it, but we never see her grab it. We just see her argue with her dad. So I was a little confused. I was like, oh, she found it. Okay. Her mom and Aunt Nina hug her, and her dad says that she was great. He pulls her aside and says that he was wrong. He says seeing her was the proudest moment of his life, and he wishes Paul could have seen it. And they hug.
I wish he apologized.
Did he not?
He says he was wrong. He just keeps being like, I was wrong, but there's no I'm sorry, and that made me kind of sad. But a lot of progress.
Yeah, we'll take it.
Mr. Torvald comes up to her and her family and tells her parents that they loved having her this year and they hope to see her again next summer. And her dad says, you just might.
Then Jay calls her over for an impromptu performance with all their friends on the stairs, and everybody at school starts riffing again like they did at the beginning of the movie. But this time, Terry is singing with them. And that's the end.
Yay.
Yay. They really did cue this up where if this movie would have done well, there would have been a second one.
Definitely, yeah.
But it didn't, so there wasn't. Yay. What did you think overall after rehashing the plot?
I thought it was great. I think it's a really cute one. It does feel very nostalgic because of the time of it and because of it just fits perfectly into 2003 and all of the other movies that we talk about. So I can't believe that I hadn't seen it until now. And now I just feel like it's logged in my Hilary Duff catalog, you know?
Yay.
Yeah.
I love it. The next one we have to watch is The Perfect Man, which I've never seen actually. Have you?
I've never seen that one either, no.
Someone on Instagram reached out to us and said that they were watching it and that it wasn't maybe worth doing a podcast episode on it because it's really bad. But worth watching if we love Hilary, so.
Okay. We'll check it out. We'll report back. You guys will know if we do an episode on it or not. That's our verdict.
Well, thank you guys so much for listening. This was so fun.
And we'll talk to you next week. Bye.